What's better than this? Guys being dudes here on the Draft Dudes podcast. It's Joe Marino, Kyle Krabs, and Chris Schubert from the Draft Network, and we are your hosts here on this Wednesday episode of the show. A lot of good football coming up this weekend, folks. If you want to place some bets, head on over to betonline.ag. They have the best odds, lines, and props. Great contests, new updated website. Check them out, betonline.ag. And, of course, we got a deal for you. If you head on over there, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code BLEAV50. That's BLEAV50. That'll get you a 50% welcome bonus. They have pro and college hoops, NHL, NFL, boxing, UFC, and Kyle, those Vegas casino games. You can play them there at betonline.ag. What's up, man? Happy Wednesday to you.
Happy Wednesday. Congratulations on getting the day right twice in the intro today. I know that was not our finest moment yesterday on the pod.
Did you see me like Cam Newton before we started? You know how like Cam Newton's first play of the game, it's like this very like, what is he doing? He's finding like his Zen place or something. And before we started, I did that. And I told myself it was Wednesday, and I got it right.
Nailed it.
Ready?
I'm doing great, man. I'm ready to rumble, man.
There's probably going to be some good rumbles here because I think Chris and I are going to butt heads on a couple of college football takes. We have the latest college football rankings to look upon. There's been some crazy stuff going in the college football coaching carousel. So it's a lot to talk about here in the landscape of college football. Shuby, get us started. Like, where do you want to go first?
Well, what do you want to? Do you want to bicker right away, or do you want to save that for the end of the show? Do we want to tease it?
Let's get right into it. Let's talk about Lincoln Riley.
Okay.
Head coach of Southern Cal, the Trojans, not the Sooners. I can't help but my initial reaction to this being my guy wants to get ahead of having to go to the SEC and goes over to the Pac-12, which I think we can all agree is a pretty wide open conference, right? Like you can quickly take over one of those more prestigious programs and feel like you can sit atop that Pac-12 for a while and you can kind of Clemson it. You know what I mean? Like just win because there's nobody else good in your conference. And I feel like Lincoln Riley has positioned himself well to do that. Now, look, credit to him. He's going to make a ton of money. It's going to be great for his family. I don't blame him, right? Like if people want to make decisions with their profession that they feel will position themselves to be in a better spot and have a better quality of life and it'll be best for their family, like I'm never going to criticize another human being for doing that. However, this smells a little bit like I don't want to go to the SEC.
Can you blame him? I wouldn't want to go to the SEC if I was Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma.
Scared to compete.
He wanted nothing to do with it in the first place, apparently. They made the decision without consulting him in the first place, according to the reports.
The head coach of the team should not be able to have input on what conference you play in. You don't have that kind of clout, and you can leave at moment's notice, as evidenced by what he did. So I don't blame Oklahoma for not asking him.
Sure, then that's fine. But then Oklahoma and everybody involved with Oklahoma can't be surprised when he goes, you know what? You're going this way. I'm going to go another way. You can do that. You can keep him out of the decision making, and that's your prerogative. But then you can't all of a sudden then be mad at him when he goes, well, I don't like your decision. I'm going to jet to a better situation for me and my family.
So what if this is a fascinating angle that I hadn't considered? What if they went to Lincoln Riley and said, hey, we really like to go to the SEC. You signing off on this? And he's like, no.
And
then he would say,
and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, well, then I'm going to leave. Like, is that a real conversation that could have happened?
No, but again, this is my frustration is with Oklahoma fans and people around the program who think Lincoln Riley is the devil for choosing to leave to go to USC. That's the issue I have with it. Don't act all surprised that he jetted to another situation. USC is a job that doesn't open up very often.
What was the phrasing that he used when he was asked about the LSU job?
I'm not going to be the coach of LSU next question or something like that.
Yeah. Very dismissive.
And that was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. then good for him for using appropriate phrasing, because phrasing, as we know, is very important. But what's this about? Is his cornerbacks coach or whatever that was doing recruiting visits and then flipped to Oklahoma, or flipped to USC with Lincoln, like within 24 hours of taking visits to recruits for? Did you see this?
So I do think
some big hubbub about this.
Yeah, there's definitely some weird stuff going on here, because if anybody believes Lincoln Riley when he tells, I think he told Scott Van Pelt this, that his first contact with USC was like Sunday morning, and then they got everything done within a couple of hours, you are gullible if you believe anything about that. They have been working on this for months. Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma has been in the works for a long time. Now, I don't know if it was always to USC. I think LSU was potentially on the table, because there's a lot of noise coming out that he might have taken that job. But again, doesn't appear like he wanted anything to do with the SEC and took the first opportunity to go to someplace else. But this has been in the works.
Well, that's not true. That's not true, because they said that Lincoln pulled out at the last minute from LSU, had been in contact with vendors to do and announce Lincoln as the coach, and he pulled out at the minute. So you can't say he doesn't want anything to do with the SEC if he was that close.
This catering ordeal, I saw this story, I think, on Monday morning, that they had caterers ready for Lincoln Riley, and then have we had a story like this in the coaching carousel in a long time? This is amazing to me.
Not in a little bit. And this doesn't even get into the Brian Kelly stuff.
So one thing that really stands out about both the Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly decisions is some of the responses to it, where there's always going to be this group of people that gets pissed off about coaches quitting on teams and leaving programs. Like, all right, first of all, people change jobs all the time, right? Like, you only care because it's a football team, right, that you happen to root for. That's the only reason you care. If the manager at the Target switched over and left to go to Walmart, you wouldn't care. All right, so let's acknowledge what that is. But secondly, everybody always takes exception with how the players are informed. And I got my palms up wondering, what are they supposed to do?
Joe, this is a fantastic point, because again, Brian Kelly didn't choose to leak the news the way that it leaked that he was leaving to LSU. He was on a plane to go to Notre Dame to have a conversation with the players and to talk to them about this, right? He was there to talk with them, and it got leaked ahead of time. So then everybody judges him for he only talked to the players for a couple of minutes. What do you want him to say? He's chosen to leave. Mm-hmm. The only thing he can do is say that he's leaving. Tell the players, listen, these are the people that are in charge now. These are the people that you're listening to, and to move on. It's awkward for everybody. And then there are people like, oh, why didn't he stay through the end of the season? Well, one, if he stays through the end of the season, through bowl season, maybe he's not the LSU head coach, and you can't pass opportunities up like that.
Right.
And secondly,
early recruiting window. Yep.
And secondly, even if he took the LSU job and said, I want to stay on and coach through the bowl game, do you think those players are going to respect him? Do you think they're going to listen to him? Right. He's going to lose the room. There's no winning in this situation, and everybody has to understand that. There is no magical way that everybody's happy that Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to go to LSU. Somebody's going to be upset, and that's just the way it works.
Right. But it seems like it's such an obvious thing for us to point out, like we're reasonable people here. But at large, there's always this loud group of people that gets so pissed about, I guess, the theater that goes into all of this.
Did we see his 4-minute address to the team was leaked this morning?
No, I haven't seen it.
I did not see that, no.
I have also not seen it, but PFF College Football has tweeted the video from some account with the name Chief, the entire 4-minute goodbye address to the team. So perhaps there are some nuggets there that would be of interest for everybody if you are interested to hear what Coach Kelly had to say with his address that did happen with the team.
So you said he said goodbye to the team, just like you should say goodbye to dull gifts. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds are the brightest gift of the year. Using cutting-edge technology and innovative techniques, they've cracked the science of sparkle, creating the highest quality lab-grown diamonds you can find at a light price, only $800 per carat. They have the same chemical makeup of natural diamonds, but are just grown in a lab. And because of their process, they can create stones in bluish pink and beautiful blue and even that classic white. So check out Lightbox lab-grown diamonds. They are the gift that they'll never want to take off, and priced so they won't have to. They really do make any outfit sparkle. Visit lightboxjewelry.com to add sparkle to your holiday shopping. That's lightboxjewelry.com. Lightbox diamonds, never a dull moment. So one of the interesting things that's come out through all of these coaching shifts, particularly the Brian Kelly, is everyone's being reminded that he's always been an asshole, right? Like that's the thing, right? Like you listen, anybody who's followed Brian Kelly for the last 10 years or however long he's been at Notre Dame knows that this guy's kind of an ass, right?
He was
and
in
everyone's
hot water
gonna be surprised now.
He was in hot water for that execution joke, which was in poor taste because he was trying to quote some long-time saying and butchered it, and it came out like really bad. And it was like he was just in hot water this past year, and like it seems like every year he's in trouble for something. And there are varying degrees of severity in which there's been transgressions with Brian Kelly. And I thought the story that came out about Robert Saleh and who was the other one? Was it
LaFleur?
It was Matt LaFleur.
It was Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
They were GAs working for him, and he invited him over to a party. And instead of being there at the party, he had him shovel snow and then drive people's cars in and out to get them picked up. It's like, holy cow, man! Like,
hey,
this has been a thing for a bit now, hasn't it?
Joke's on everyone else, man. Those guys became NFL head coaches, So, it was, the thing about Brian Kelly is I think about all the comments that he's made about prospects or his players that declare early for the draft that he doesn't agree with that decision. He'll tell you exactly how he feels. Tell you exactly how he feels about how they're not ready to play in the NFL. And on one hand, I appreciate the honesty, but on the other hand, it's like, man, I'm a little surprised that you're using this type of language to describe one of your former players that, their success in the NFL would mean a lot for you and your program. So he's kind of always been this way, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the Brian Kelly goes to LSU, SEC. LSU's not in the SEC championship game this year, but Georgia and Alabama are, and we'll be there. We'll be there for the SEC championship game. What is better than guys being dudes on the road? The Draft Network and Bud Light Seltzer are bringing the party to the SEC championship game in Atlanta, Georgia on December 4th. That's this Saturday. We'd love to see you there. The Draft Dudes, that's us, the TDN team. We'll all be hanging out, playing games, giving away swag, and enjoying Bud Light Seltzers right across the street from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the CSX lot ahead of the 2021 SEC title game. Come on out and join us for an afternoon full of fun and football with the Draft Network and Bud Light Seltzer in Atlanta.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, man.
Can we argue about the college football playoff, or is that not allowed today on a Wednesday?
You have exceptions with the college football?
I'm very nervous. I'm very, very nervous. I think the committee is setting up for what I have warned everybody all year long about.
So let's recap the top six here.
So
Georgia's 1.
Yep.
Michigan 2.
Alabama 3.
Alabama 3.
Cincinnati 4.
Cincinnati 4.
Oklahoma State 5. Notre Dame 6.
What's your concern?
If Oklahoma State wins, they will hop Cincinnati.
So a win over Baylor
is enough in a conference championship game versus Cincinnati plays.
I don't even know.
I don't even know. As Major Chris, I probably should know this.
Houston. It's Houston. It's Houston.
It's a ranked Houston team. It's a ranked Houston team.
So both are
God,
ranked.
If they do that and Cincinnati gets a ranked top 25 win, what a dumpster. Ranked in the playoff rankings.
Yeah, they're 16th in the playoff rankings.
Oh, they can't do it.
I think
if Cincinnati wins the game. You because Baylor's 9th. You can't possibly say that.
So, all right,
Houston is 21st.
To watch the war.
I tend to feel like the best way for Oklahoma State to get in is an Alabama loss, right? Do we envision a 2-loss Alabama sticking in this thing?
Joe, I will tell you this right now. If that game is close, it's fourth quarter, final possession, or it's overtime, Alabama could get in with 2 losses.
With an Oklahoma State win. And Notre Dame, obviously, their resume is complete. They're not doing anything more or less this year.
Mm-hmm.
So you have multiple paths for Cincinnati to bump out. Is that what I'm interpreting from you?
Yes, I think Gary Barta and the committee are setting up Cincinnati to be bounced out.
I kind of hope it happens just to watch the world burn, but at the same time, it would not be fair to. It would not be fair to Cincinnati, and I think we can say that because if you were never going to tend to put them in, then why did you put them fourth in the first place just to yank the rug out from underneath them after they presumably win their conference championship game against another ranked team?
Right. So it would be my contention here that you kept them lower than they should have been when we started this process, right? And I yelled and I screamed the entire time. Then, because of what they did and because of what other teams did, they got themselves into one of those 4 spots. They moved their way up. As Joe said, it worked out the way it should have worked out. It all takes care of itself in the end, right? And so then, if they while they're in one of the spots, beat a ranked top 25 team, again, the committee put Houston as a top 25 football team. If they beat Houston, I just would ask, what more can they possibly do in the committee's eyes? The answer is nothing. That's the answer.
So
win every game by 50 points.
Pretty critical moment here. Like this is that moment where it's like, if they go out and win that football game and you don't put them in, then you've literally said a non-Power 5 team cannot be in here, right? Like it can't happen.
Right. If this year, if Cincinnati runs the table and has the win over Notre Dame, has the win over SMU, would have beaten Houston in the conference championship game. Those 3 wins. If that resume, along with being undefeated, along with being one of the best defensive teams in the country, if that resume does not get them in, then it's not going to happen for anybody.
Correct.
So what's interesting is if we kind of marry our first conversation about coaching vacancies in the college football playoffs, what if Luke Fickell is the guy for Notre Dame? He's got to coach the playoffs, right? It's going to put him out through December.
Well, you heard what Gary Barta said, that they haven't considered Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame as a knock against them yet, but it is one of their factors.
Right. Yeah.
Which by the way, ridiculous. Your coach leaves and now all of a sudden you're not good enough to make the college football playoff despite what you did the entire year. That's dumb to me.
And Notre Dame has a path here, right? Like if Michigan loses to Iowa, not that crazy. If Alabama loses to Georgia, not that crazy. If Cincinnati loses to Houston, not that crazy. Like, if any 2 of those things happen, they're in, right?
Well, Joe, if Oklahoma State loses to Baylor, they probably already slide up to 5 and are probably the first team in contention if Michigan or Alabama loses. If and then you need a 2-loss Alabama in.
And then you need I think you would need the Michigan loss to Iowa. I think the Michigan loss to Iowa would be enough to drop them out.
I mean, somebody put on Twitter this morning, I can't remember who, but it was a good take. Every Mike Tyson gets Buster Douglas, right? Like, we're not talking about crazy stuff that can't happen, right? Like, there's at least a puncher's chance of some of that stuff going down that positions Notre Dame to be like, all right, I guess you're in.
Oh, and the most simple way that Notre Dame gets in is if Oklahoma State loses to Baylor and Cincinnati loses to Houston.
Yeah. Not crazy.
And like should be a very reasonable chance that both of those things do happen.
But the committee's telling us that they probably would knock Notre Dame for not having Brian Kelly.
But if those other 2 teams lost, who's behind Notre Dame? Who's at 7? Are you going to go all the way to the well? Or
7.
If it's Ole Miss, then you
7
can't do it.
Is a 2-loss Ohio State team.
Ohio State, yeah, that's right. And Ole Miss is 8.
Ole Miss is 8.
Yeah.
Now, Baylor's 9. So in our scenario, if Baylor beats Oklahoma State, do you put in a 2-loss conference championship team over a 2-loss Ole Miss, a 2-loss Ohio State? I don't know.
They can't go from 9 up to 4 and jump 1-loss teams because of semantics. It can't happen.
So Chris is somebody who's advocated for the expansion of the college football. We're kind of on the doorstep of this being complete, right? Does it strengthen your desire for the new format, or are you kind of thinking maybe there's not that many teams that should be in the tournament?
No, expansion absolutely needs to be on the table, because just because this year might potentially work out with the way that I want it to in terms of the team that I think deserves to be in Cincinnati getting in, that doesn't change all of the other mistakes that they have made with Power 5 teams. Like they have just absolutely done dirty the Big 12 at times in this process. So just to make it simple, go to at least 8. If you're in a Power 5 conference, you win your conference championship, you're in. And then seed them accordingly. So in a year where maybe the Pac-12 is not very good, seed that team accordingly, even though they won their conference championship. I think it's a very easy way to do this, and I'm still pro expansion. I would go more than 8, but I think 8 is a nice place.
12's, I mean, isn't 12 what's on the table? That's a lot bigger than 8.
12 would work for me. I would like 12.
Because it's the 5 conferences, 3 at-large bids. And how do you get the other a group of 6 guaranteed?
I think it's 5 at-large. It's the 5 conferences. It's the highest-rated group of 6 team. Gives you 6. And then I think it's 6 at-larges would be the format.
Okay. That'd be fun. That would be fun. I'm here for that.
Until we have a year where Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina are both undefeated. Well, I guess maybe they could both get in that scenario.
Correct. They're not cannibalizing each other, because one of them will get the automatic spot, and then the other one is in the mix for one of the 6 at-larges.
But then it's like, kind of takes some of the takes, like, think about, so if this were in that scenario, Ohio State's probably going to be in the playoff, right? And meanwhile, Michigan friggin' beat them, and then Ohio State can beat them in the playoff, and they advance. Like, I don't know. To me, it takes so much of the emphasis off of the regular season in a lot of ways.
Didn't you and I have a tiff 2 years ago about Georgia making it as the fourth seed when they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game? And my whole argument was your playoff game was the SEC championship game.
Yeah, I think that was a point in time. Yeah, that was a point in time in my life where I think I had a very, 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 very heavy SEC bias.
Oh.
So because I've moved off of that a little bit, I think I've opened my mind a little bit. Maybe other people can learn from that.
Welcome.
Yeah. I just wanted SEC in there all the time. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, you and the college football playoff committee. You should submit your resume, Joe. More. Maybe you can be on the committee next year.
We've been through a journey with Kyle's hair on this podcast, haven't we today? Like what has happened?
So I got out of the shower before we hopped on.
Yeah.
And it's just like air drying wet. And like when it gets dry, it's very billowy. So it's like it's half damp, half dry, half wet. And it's all over the place right now. So
do you blow dry it? Would that be helpful?
If I had a blow dryer, I would blow dry it, but I do not own a blow dryer.
Wife doesn't.
I'm not sure my wife has one somewhere, and I don't know where it would be.
I think mine has about 6 of them.
Haven't had hair for a really long time, and now I do, and I gotta. The whole process has to be adjusted, Yeah. So that's what a great note for us to go out on a Wednesday. But that's where we are going to go ahead and put a button on this thing. So we appreciate everybody tuning in for a little bit of odds and ends, a little bit of water cooler Wednesday throwback. A couple of years when Joe and I used to shoot the breeze on Wednesdays here on the podcast, and a little bit of a free-for-all vibe, but focused on college football. And there's been some pretty monumental news, so we thought it was important for us to take a little time and share our thoughts on it. We appreciate you guys stopping by and listening. We hope you continue to hit subscribe on the podcast and follow along. Listen, this weekend, Atlanta, if you're in town, Draft Dudes, Bud Light Seltzer, tailgate, SEC championship game, don't miss it. We kindly ask you as well. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, Chris Schubert, thanks as always for listening to the Draft Dudes podcast.